Hey, this is A.J.B, a psychotherapist in New York and New Jersey, and in this video, we're going to go over the 10 things to be mindful of if you have anxiety or anything else, really. Whether you have anxiety or depression or deep shame and guilt that's eating away at you or massive anger problems, it doesn't matter. This stuff works on everything. I'm going to go over 10 of these things. There's actually 15, but I wanted to keep this as short as possible. I didn't want to go on forever, so I cut it down to 10. 10 is a nice number. If you want more, leave it in the comment section and I will cover the remaining 5 in another video. So let's jump into this. What are we going to be covering today? Well, we're going to be covering cognitive distortions. Have you heard of those things? Cognitive distortions. If you have, stick around because it's important to remember these things. See, if you're going to be using cognitive distortions, if you're going to be identifying cognitive distortions for yourself, and you want to make it useful, you can't just have a sheet that you refer to. You have to remember them. You have to have them memorized and be able to recall them like that. You know, couldn't snap my finger well. You know what I mean? So stick around. Let's do a review. If you don't know of these things, well, you definitely got to know about these things. And once you hear them, replay this video again and again because you got to memorize these things. Why? Why do you have to memorize them? Because to make use of them, to make them useful at all to you, you have to be able to identify them on the spot. So as you're going through your day, you have to be able to say, "Oh, that's this distortion. Oh, that's that distortion," and that allows you to detach yourself from thoughts. Just by doing that, it allows you to detach yourself from whatever thoughts that are contributing to your anxiety or depression or shame or anger. Right? That's one way that's going to help you automatically. Another way it's going to help you is after that, you can start challenging that thought. And that's really the most important part of the work. That's the challenging component. We're not going to focus on that here. We're just going to stick to identifying them, and that alone should be very helpful to you. If you want to cover challenging, how that works, leave it in the comment section. Let me know you want me to do that. I will take care of that for the next video. Let's look at the first cognitive distortion, shall we? Oop, nope, that didn't work. There we go, that worked. Okay, the first kind of distortion is all or nothing thinking. I think it's super common. I feel like everybody does this. All or nothing thinking is seeing things in black and white categories. An example of that is people are all good or all bad. So, when might someone do all or nothing thinking? I imagine that one situation someone might say that people are all good or bad is, let's say after you got ripped off at a store. Let's say you just bought something and you thought like they were being fair with you, but then you realized, man, no, they were cheating me this whole time. They lied to me. And then you walk out, man, all people are a-holes, right? That saying all people are a-holes is all or nothing thinking. Another example is projects are perfect or failure. So perfectionists, people who are perfectionistic tend to do a lot of all or nothing thinking. So people who are perfectionists, by the way, suffer a lot of anxiety. Because, man, let me tell you, it's impossible, actually. It's impossible to be perfect. And trying to even achieve that is going to cause a whole lot of stress. And then later, also depression, because then you start feeling like a failure. And last example is high caloric food is bad. Low caloric food is good. Good. It's good. Yes, low caloric food is good. So this is, I think our society suffers from this kind of all or nothing thinking, right? We used to say all milk products, all dairy products are bad. It's gonna cause you, raise the bad cholesterol, lower the blah blah blah. And now research is coming back that no, it's actually not true. It depends on what, right? That there's gray areas here. Now, I think now the next thing that we're doing right now is all red meat is bad. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think now that's the fad, or the all or nothing fad, let's call it, right? That's probably also going to bounce back and say, oh, okay, not all red meat is bad. Maybe it's just processed red meat. I think that's what it is right now, actually. They're suspecting that it's processed red meat. Anyway, I don't know. I'm no food expert, but these are just some examples of potential all or nothing thinking that we do in culture. Culture-wide, we do all or nothing thinking, Oh, man. Even a lot of the outrage content. So, on the internet, we have a lot of outrage content. I love consuming outrage content. Some of the outrage content is out there that, like, for example, the most ridiculous aspects of our of our society. People who are angry at all men or angry at all women. All women are like that. All men are like that. That's all or nothing thinking. So an example of that in the man community is the MGTOW, MGTOW, men going their own way. All women are like that. They will say things like that against about women, and then we also have the most vocal type of feminists who will say all men are this way, all men are that way, right? So those are examples of all or nothing thinking. Yeah, that was a great example. I should have included that in the list. Anyways, let's keep going to the next one. Next one is overgeneralization. Also another super common one, right? So I'm hitting you with the most common ones. Overgeneralization is believing that something will always happen because it happened once. An example is I will never get a date because I once got declined. So if you were reading along with me on the screen that there's a mistake. If you're not, then you didn't see it. There's no mistake. Pay no mind. I make no mistakes. I'm a perfectionist. So I will never get a date because I once got declined. Right. So I think this is also super common. We will sometimes get down on ourselves. Maybe you got rejected from a job, you didn't get a job or a gig, and you'll say, man, I'm never going to get a job. Not true. Not true. We all know this is not true. But we'll say that to ourselves, and this is going to make us feel worse. So we got to be mindful about what we say to ourselves. And the next example of this is, I will never be able to speak in public because I once had a panic attack before giving a speech. Yeah, it just happened once. Once is not always, right? So let's go to the next one. Discounting the positive. That's when you're believing that if a good thing happens, it must not be important or does not count. An example of that is I passed the exam this time, but it was a coincidence. Another example is I did not have a panic attack today, but it is only because I was too busy to be worried. So you're not giving yourself basically credit for the good things. If you do something right, this is like a distortion that belongs for people with both anxiety and depression. But I feel like this one's leading you directly into depression. You just ignore all the positives. I don't know if you knew, but in our minds, negative things are valued at least 4 times as much as positive things. The reason for that is because it's an evolutionary thing. Like, we need to do that to survive. Like, for example, like if you see a wonderful, delicious cake on your left-hand side, right? And you see rustling in the leaves, or you hear and see rustling in the leaves are shaking on your right-hand side. Which one's going to kill you right away? The cake might kill you later if you eat too much, right? But what's the more immediate threat? But the rustling in the leaves, because that could be a tiger, that could be somebody trying to hurt you, right? So we naturally value the negative things 4 times, but at least 4 times as heavily as the positive things. So if you're discounting the positive, man, are you hurting yourself? You're hurting yourself deeply, because one thing we absolutely have to do if we want to have sanity in this world is we have to nurture the positivity. Because let me tell you, man, even if you keep them 1-to-1 ratio, I am going to maintain positive things about life on a 1-to-1 ratio with negative things, right? So for one negative thing that happens, I'm going to say 1 positive thing. That's not enough. You actually have to have 4 positive things to 1 negative things. Because if you don't, then that negative thing is going to win. It's going to outweigh the positive, all right? So that's that. Let's go to the next one. Next is jumping to conclusions. I feel like I do that a lot. Jumping to conclusions is responding to a situation without having all the information. It's like, oh my God! This is gonna happen! Like, I do that. Anybody that knows me, I do that. An example is, he did not call me back because he thinks I am not qualified. Another example is, that person cut me off in traffic because he does not care about other people. What is that I do most often? When was the last time I jumped to conclusion? I'm gonna be late. I'm gonna be late. We're not gonna make it. We're not gonna make it. That's me jumping to conclusion. So, like, let's say I woke up, like, I don't know, 10 minutes late. I'm late. I'm already stressed out. Now I'm stressed out. Now I'm like, anxious, like, oh, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna be late, and then it turns out that I rushed in the morning, and I ended up making up the 10 minutes or whatever that I woke up late by, and everything's fine. But yeah, that's totally me. Let me know which one is you as we go along. Leave it in the comments section. Next one is mind reading. Mind reading, like psychic. Believing that you know how someone else is feeling or what they are thinking without any evidence. An example of that is, I know she hates me. Or, that person thinks I'm a failure. I'm trying to think if I do that. I think this is less me, but I'm sure I've done it. I feel like all of these we have done at one point or another. They're so common. They're so ingrained in just like, natural self-talk when we're like really riled up. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So let's go on to the next one. Next one is fortune telling. Believing that you can predict a future outcome while ignoring other options. People will laugh at me when I present my ideas. Yep. I am not going to pass this test is another example. Yeah, also pretty self-explanatory, right? It's when it's kind of like jump to conclusions, right? I'm jumping to a conclusion that, but it's a different flavor of jumping to conclusions, right? So here you're predicting something negatively. I think that's actually another way I remember this being framed as. It's called negative predictions, fortune telling, negative predictions. Right, because if we were doing fortune telling in a positive way, like I'm gonna rock this this speech, this wouldn't really be a problem, would it? Let's go to the next one. Magnifying, or also known as catastrophizing. I've always used the term catastrophizing, but you know what? Spell check always gives me issues about that. But I'm hoping one day all the spell checks will add it. So magnifying, or also known as catastrophizing or minimizing, it refers to distorting the importance of positive and negative events. So if it's a negative event, you're going to magnify it. You're going to catastrophize it. You're going to making a mountain out of a molehill. That's another way of saying that. Or minimizing the importance of positive events. So let's look at some examples. One example is, my nose is so big that no one will ever find me attractive. All right, so you're magnifying it. Maybe, first of all, maybe nobody even sees it as big. And second of all, maybe there's someone that loves it, man. I say there's a buyer for every seller. That's one thing I say when it comes to dating. The next example is, it doesn't matter if I'm smart because I will never be popular. Okay, and the last example is, I said the wrong thing so they will never hire me. Right, so those are examples of magnifying, minimizing, catastrophizing. They are very similar, right? Are you getting the sense that they're kind of similar? Let's go to the next one. Emotional reasoning. Okay, this one's a little different. So that's believing something to be true because it feels true. So this is actually something that in our culture that's very popular, right? A lot of times we'll see like little memes or like little, not memes, I don't know what you want to call it, like little graphics that are like feel-good graphics, and a lot of times I'll come across things that will say, your feelings are true or something that sounds like that. I feel like that is leading people astray. Just because we feel it doesn't mean it's true. So here's some examples. I feel so anxious, so something bad is going to happen. No. See, feelings are almost like bodily expressions of thinking, of cognition. There's even some evidence to this. So cognitive behavioral therapy is built all around that what we think determines how we feel, right? And what was I going to say? Oh, right. I was going to give you an example. It's a really cool example. They found that in some instances where a person suffers brain damage to a specific region in their brain, the part of the brain that's responsible for emotions, they lose their ability to be rational, right? So in a way, our feelings are physical expression of our attempts at rational thought. Doesn't mean that we are rational. We make mistakes. We make, calculation errors. But they're just physical expression of our truthiness, right? It feels true, but it doesn't mean, just because it feels true doesn't mean it's actually objectively true, right? So let's look at the next example is, I am worthless because I feel worthless. I feel guilty, therefore I must have done something bad. Right? No, just because you feel something doesn't mean that it's actually a thing. It's true. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Should statements. Okay, that's a popular one. If you're curious about learning more about this one, read a book named, I think, titled "Tyranny of Shoulds." "Tyranny of Shoulds" by Karen Horney. She wrote, I think she wrote like a classic on these things. Description of should statements. It's telling yourself you should not, or should have done something when it is more accurate to say that you would have preferred or wished you had or had not done something. Some examples are, I should not feel sad. No, right? So that statement like that, I should not feel sad, that's going to lead to something called signal anxiety, right? So when you're feeling sad and you say to yourself, I should not feel sad, you're going to start trying to fight it and like push it down, right? But it doesn't work like that. What ends up happening is you end up fearing it, and as fearing the sad feeling, and you end up creating this mixture, this really uncomfortable mixture of sadness and anxiety. So nobody wants that. So if you got this should with you, I should not feel sad, drop it. Drop it like a hot sack of potatoes. Who the hell would hold a hot sack of potatoes? Where would you even get a hot sack of potatoes? I mean, sack of potatoes. Anyway, next example is, I should have done something to help him. Right. Oh, I put an extra dot in there. Perfectionist. That's me. That's a perfectionist in me. This is all or nothing thinking. I messed up this whole presentation because I put an extra dot in there. That's all or nothing thinking. Anyways, I should have done something to help him. Well, I should have done something. I had a thought about that, but it escaped my mind. So let me move on to the next example. I should always be in time. I should always be on time. And, oh man, the perfectionist in me is hurting right now. I should always be on time. Right. So, holding yourself to unrealistic standards, that's going to cause you anxiety, right? And eventually, it's going to lead yourself. It could lead you to start saying to yourself, "Wow, I'm not really able to meet my own expectations. Maybe I'm a failure," right? So it runs the most immediate consequence of holding too many should statements is probably anxiety, and then long term, it's probably depression. So that's the danger of should statements. Let's go on to the next one. Personalization. That's taking blame for some negative event, even though you were not primarily responsible. An example of that is, it is my fault my husband hits me. Right? So, or children do that, So I'm a little bit, I think we're all more familiar, I think, with the child example. So my son is unhappy because of me. No, that's not the child example. But my son is unhappy because of me is another example of personalization. The example that I'm trying to think of, and that I feel like we're very familiar with because I think it's been popularized in our culture, is that the children self-blame. They take on they hold themselves responsible for like divorces, and I feel like this is like a common knowledge, right? That when parents divorce, children oftentimes say to themselves, "Oh, it's my fault that my parents divorced," especially when they're really, really little. So that's an example of personalization. But no, those examples are great. I was fixated on my child and divorced example. But an example of, it is my fault my husband hits me. Yeah, that's personalization. Like it's not like, I mean, unless you hit your own husband, unless you're the first one to hit him, and he's just defending himself, that's really the only scenario I can think of that where this could be the case. Then no, it's not. It's more than likely this pertains to abuse, physical abuse. My son is unhappy because of me. Again, more than likely that's not the case. Now, if, like, let's say the father is abusive and beats the crap out of his son, then yeah, right. But more than likely, in most scenarios, personalization is taking on ownership for something that we really have no ownership of, or assuming that control is within our hands when it's not. So I think that's it. I think that is that's the last one. I hope you enjoyed these. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the share button. hit the share button. Can you say that? Hey, share this content. That helps a lot. Stick around because eventually I'm going to be doing lives with some awesome stuff that's going to be very helpful. And leave your comments. Let me know which one are you most guilty of. I don't think I do personalization a lot. I think I think I mentioned the ones that I do the most. Let me know which ones you do. If you want me to do the last 5, there's 5 more. Let me know. I'll be happy to cover them. And that's it for this video. So I will see you in the next one.